So MIKKO sent me a bunch of plugins that I want to look at today with you. Actually, I created a whole song using primarily only stuff from MIKKO from ML Sound Lab. We have the drums, which are just ML drums, and then a bunch of different guitar amp simulators. So we have the JCM800 here, the MIKKO IR loader. We're going to check all these things out. Thanks to MIKKO for sending and hooking me up. Come on, English. Hooking me up with all these plugins so I can make this video. It is sponsored by ML Sound Lab, but you guys know how it is. I have my opinions, and if I don't like something or I think something can be improved, I will let you know. But just want to let you know up front. We got the Mesa here, and these are all things that I requested to use. I wanted to try all these things out, and to be quite honest with you, the only amp that I would, on a first choice basis, pick out of all these would be the 800. You guys know I'm not a big fan of Mesa or a big fan of PB, but it doesn't mean they can't be used and they don't sound good, because they do. All right, I think that's pretty much it. So we're not going to focus on any of the vocals or orchestra stuff. And the bass actually is not from MIKKO. So this is what we used. We used for the leads, particularly I used the block letter, which clearly is a PB here. For one double of the rhythm guitars, I used the Triple Rev G. One pair of doubles, the ML800, and then all the drums here are ML drums. Now, originally, I thought I was going to use his more, I call it like the metal pack, I guess is what he's got. But I ended up liking these shells the most. Just the way they sound very thick, punchy, deep, and the cymbals I did use, though, these are all the Meinl cymbals. I think it's a pack. Let me double check the shop here. I think it's the Meld, if I remember correctly, the Melds. But they hooked me up with all this so I could check everything out, and I gotta say it was a lot of fun. The first thing off the top of my head that I can say, though, is these drums, I can tell you, were not built with the intention of 280 blast beats. But I did that on purpose because I know for what these drums really were designed for, which is more for prog gent type stuff with really hard hitting drums and shells and punchy, and that's fine. But I was like, come on, let's do some blast beats. Let's see what this can look like. And not just any blast beat, but a 280 blast beat. And I gotta say, they worked out pretty well, just fine. The one thing that I really want to point out here that you guys should pay attention to if you are working with these drums, and in general anyway, the drums are tuned to various frequencies. Now, 294 is basically around the D note on the frequency spectrum. This song was played in drop D, so I used this snare because it's tuned basically kind of to my guitar. And it's very important to get your snare in a tuning either of the key of the song or what the song sounds like dynamically, for it to just, the song will meld together. I know it's the name of the symbols here, but it will just glue together better instead of having this ping pong type of a sound or a really low tuned snare where it doesn't quite fit in the music that you're creating. So tuned snares are definitely like a studio hack. If you listen to Dimmu Borgir, actually, I don't remember which song it is, but I think it's the Ionian record. The tuning of the snare actually shifts based on what's happening in the song. If you don't believe me, just listen to the music. During the choruses, the snares are a little bit higher tuned, I believe. And then during like the verses and the guitar riffs, the snare's a little bit lower tuned. Studio magic, right? But the drums themselves are very simple. The mixer page, this is where I think I would say a couple things first. Now, there's no fader on here. At first, it took me a minute to be like, okay, what am I looking at? But then, it all made sense. These are your EQs. This is basically your reverb into the overheads in the rooms. And then compression for every single channel, except obviously your hi-hat and ride. Overheads, I feel you could have some compression if you wanted, but obviously rooms have compression. I really didn't touch any of this. Didn't touch the saturation knobs. I did the panning a little bit different for the toms and the hi-hats, and I adjusted the volumes for the hi-hat and the rides. Otherwise, I basically touched nothing. And the drums sound really good just out of the box without really needing to mess with them and do things to them. But I'm pretty much, I found what I liked from the source tones, and then I pretty much left it at that. And I've got to be honest, I really didn't do any EQ except for your standard stuff here and a high boost, which obviously if I'm looking at this now, This was 187. So I could have done it here, actually. I could have done these 3 boosts and cuts on this tone stack, but I didn't. One thing that I'll say, though, one here, too, for me personally, is having toms that I can't multi-out, or at least I'm not aware that I could do that I can multi-out these to each channel, kind of leaves a little bit to be desired sometimes. In the case where, for example, maybe the floor tom is going to have a bit more of a ring out and a little bit more of a rattle that you might want to deal with than, tom 2, for example. The, tom 2 might be like 13 inches and shallow and just might be really good with good resonance, but then you get to the 16 or the 18-inch floor tom, and it's got a little bit of a flip in it, and you'd want to treat that differently. You kind of can't here. You're going to be stuck with what you have, and you'll have to do overarching moves like I've done here. It's not good. It's not bad. Excuse me. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just how the plugin's designed. I think in most cases, because the drums sound really good and they're already processed and mixed ready, as it were, you shouldn't have to do much anyway. It's just a thing that, because I'm so used to multi-outing my stuff, and I want toms on each separate tracks, but it doesn't, I mean, like, you could even say, like, the top and the bottom should be able to be multi-out, but I think the design philosophy behind ML drums was really simplicity and songwriting. As far as that is concerned, fantastic. It works. No issues at all, right? And they sound great. When it comes to programming them, let's make it a little bit bigger so you can see. When it comes to programming them, straightforward. I found that the velocities for the blast beat were a bit tricky. You had to go really low. I think I'm at 50, velocity 50 here. And I'm actually cutting down on the velocity on the snare as well. One thing that I learned, working with Wojtek and stuff, is that you can do a lot of work and humanization by just actually choosing the correct velocity range for your drums for the song. So it really came to pass that I didn't need the kick to be at 120 or 115. It was too slappy. It was too much. So I brought the velocity down, and here we go. So it sounded just fine with what I needed to do here. And the snare is very poppy. One thing I want to point out that I've done here is I automated an EQ. In this particular instance, when we're doing the blast beats, the articulation at that velocity is a bit more round. So obviously when you're stacking that articulation on top of each other, you're getting a buildup around the fundamental frequency note of the snare, and it was kind of masking the rest of the song a little bit. It was getting in the way. So during the blast beats, I've automated this EQ to be enabled. Watch here. And you can see how much we're just pulling down the fundamental frequency a little bit to get rid of the milkiness that's happening. And that's only on the blast beats. For the regular bits and the fills, that EQ is turned off. But I mean, it's, programming drums is programming drums. It's pretty self-explanatory. The thing I did is I just made I made a drum map for myself so that I could write faster. Always use drum maps. Absolutely use drum maps. They are your friend. And that's pretty much it. Very simple stuff. The hi-hats and stuff reacted quite nice to humanization patterns. So I have no issues there. Everything sounds pretty good, actually. Natural, punchy, thick, deep. I like it. So the drums, I'm quite a fan of. And actually, when it comes, if I work on a project that's a bit more proggy per se, I have a feeling that the ghost notes are going to be pretty good here too. So, for example, I think that 50 is more of the ghost note range for this instrument, which is why they're still pretty nice but round and still have articulation. So I'm imagining here with the ghost notes will probably sound pretty good there. First things first, these do not have stereo processing. So what that means is these will have to go on every single guitar track that you want to use them on. For most modern computers and laptops, this should not be an issue. What you'll just want to do is exactly what I've just said. So I have the amp on both channels, left and right. And in Cubase, actually, because what is the most annoying thing about this, why people really like stereo processing other than just saving CPU, is that you have just the one set of knobs to deal with. In Cubase, you can actually link these together. So you can link a selected channel, and you can have inserts as part of the link group, which will mean that all of the moves you do here are going to be linked together, and so you don't have to go back and forth copy pasting everything. Okay. Tuner pedal board has everything that you're going to need here, and actually this is why I really enjoyed this. I wanted to try the 800, and this sounds very legitimate, almost like a stock 2203. Sounds like an 800 to me. It's very nice, gritty, not overly bassy. It just literally sounds like an 800. So if we just press play here, go to the chuggy palm part. Wait a minute, where is it? Come on, did I forget where it is? Oh, it's right here. Yeah, that sounds about as 800 as you can get. Real nasty, gnarly, guttural throat. I really like it. And it lands itself well, excuse me, for blending with another amp, which I normally would do with my Savage or something like that. But I used the Mesa because that's what I was given. Didn't use a preset, I'm sorry, I used the preset, didn't save it yet, but pretty much just tweaked it to my heart's content. I cranked the bass, took on the middle, and then this changed when I put the Mesa in here, because they have to have the Mesa, you have to play together. You have to see what the Mesa's doing well, and then, so if the Mesa's doing this, you got to pull it out of the 800, and vice versa. If the 800's doing this, you got to pull it out of the Triple Rec, because that's how you get like a nice blend instead of clashing frequencies. If there's a lot of treble on the 800 and you add a lot of treble on the Mesa, well, you're just asking for treble. Okay, it's not going to work like that. The pedal board here, the cab, I have bypassed because I used the MIKKO IR loader. So let's talk about the IRs and the IR loader in general here in just a second. But very realistic sounding. The hype is real. The MIKKO IR loader is really nice. I really like the functionality, really being able to move the microphone exactly how I want to in whatever way that I want. We'll talk about that when I talk about the IR loader. So this is the tone that I came up with here. Very articulated, very raw sounding. I really enjoy it. This is going through Mika's version of an angle cab, by the way, through the Mikka, but we'll go to that later. And then with the Mesa, so you can see how the 800 was a bit more dry, wasn't as thick and fat or saturated. So what I'm doing with the Mesa is exactly what the 800 is not doing. So I'm adding a lot of mids, not so much bass, more gain, and cutting down on the treble and the presence, because there's the bite is already happening with the 800. So I have the bite, I have the articulation. Now with the triple, I kind of just want to add fatness and body and saturation. So I'm cranking the gain a little bit, but I'm really adding mids because this amp is naturally scooped anyway. That's one of the reasons like Cola really enjoys it. It just has like this metal EQ profile already. But I cut back the presence and treble and the bass, pretty much did the exact opposite moves of what the 800's doing. It's almost like they should fit together as a puzzle piece, right? So just kind of like this. So we have a lot of presence and a lot of treble. So I back down the presence and back down the treble. Not a lot of mids on the 800, so a lot of mids on the Rev G. Bass is cranked, turn the bass down a little bit. Now, just by the nature of this amp itself, it's still going to be a bit whoopy and tubby, if you want to call it that. But putting it just below the 800 in terms of balance, it blends together very nicely. Pedal board here, just have the drive. Not doing anything else. Cab is disabled. All right, and so the tones, like the Mesa by itself, sounds like this. So it's very juicy, very saturated, has that chug sound, and then when you put the 800 on it, it becomes very aggressive, very articulated, like very punchy. Getting the punch from the 800, getting the saturation from the Mesa. So that was my philosophy with working with the guitar tone. Now, as far as processing goes, guys, it's the same story. Guitar tone mastery all over and all over again. By the way, I'm updating that. I'm completely scrapping guitar tone mastering and making a completely new series. It'll be called Metal Guitar Amp Sim Mastery, specifically for amp simulators, and because guitar tone mastery came out in the Stone Ages. That's happening later on this year. Keep an eye out for that, but it's going to be awesome. Just doing basic cuts here with what I felt needed to happen in processing. This is the Soft 2 version of the API. I really like this plugin. I'm using it more and more and more to replace the Waves plugin because I don't want to use Waves anymore after their little debacle. So I'm trying to really replace Waves in earnest so I don't use it anymore, to include the El Juan limiter from Core Audio. This was completely free when I downloaded this a couple months ago. It might still be free, who knows, but El Juan limiter. It's nice. All right, moving on to the leads. The leads now, so here's the thing when you're doing guitar tones, right, guys? You want to be able to have articulation and the guitar tone to jump out of the mix. Now, you get the rhythm guitar tone, right? A lot of you email and message me saying, I get great rhythm guitar tones, I can't get a lead guitar tone. Here's the biggest tip that you need to know. In order for a lead guitar tone to pop out, you want to change as much as possible about the signal chain. Most importantly, you want to change the IR. So we'll talk about that. We'll get there, I promise. This is just the 666 settings. This is just a classic guitar lead setting for the PV. You don't have to think about it. Just 666, bam, done. It works, and I spent 2 seconds putting this together. I didn't even look at this plugin other than that because I knew this setting was going to work. It was going to be all about the IR and picking the right microphone and stuff. So when it comes to doing this, you have to change the signal chain completely. So we have, for example, and I did this on everything, by the way. So up here, this is the JCM 800. If we look at this, I have an Engel amp with a V30 from 1998. It sounds really good. Classic 57 on here. Now I have the same cab, different amp. I can't use the same microphone positioning. It's not gonna. There's just gonna be buildup of frequencies, especially in the IR world. Maybe with a real speaker and a real cab, it wouldn't be quite so obvious because the speaker's moving more. But here, you really want to pick a different microphone, and you want to pick a microphone that connects well with the original one that you've chosen, right? So I told you we were going to talk about this. So here's the 800. It's got that articulation and that grunt, right? Well, if we choose the 57, we're just going to not copy paste, but we're going to have that exact same frequency happening, and we're going to have frequency bumps, and then we're going to have whistles, and we're going to have problems. We're going to try and EQ them out. You can just avoid all that by picking a different microphone, which has a different EQ profile that'll basically record the speaker in a different way, so you don't have these buildups and resonances of the EQ frequency spectrum. So two completely different microphones. They're doing completely different things. This one, the reason why I picked the M160 here was I really wanted to focus on the roundness and the thickness and the fatness. I didn't really want to get or high-end spikiness because the 57 is already doing that with the 800. So I really was like, okay, what'll pair well here? I want something kind of smooth, fat, that still has good articulation. And listening to the 800 at the same time, going through different microphones here. So what I mean is, I was listening to the 800, and while that was going on, I was picking a microphone for the Mesa. And at the same time, I was also moving it around, tilting it. Like, I really enjoy the movement capacity of the MIKKO IR loader here. I like that I can move the cap to the edge and the distance back from the speaker. Can even tilt it and angle it. This is a lot. You know, this stuff, you can deflect a lot of the harshness if you just move or tilt the microphone a little way. It'll just kind of bounce off the head of the microphone, and you don't have to do EQ then. You know, you can smoothing and darken out the tone right there at the source. This EQ section here is really nice because you can go, okay, I have some peaks here, and it's not just like, hey, we're gonna just cut out this little EQ section. When you move these around a little bit, you shape the sound just a little bit in a musical way. I really enjoyed moving these EQ points around a little bit. You can grab them and move them, you know, just like this. You can grab them and move them like that. And you can do, I really recommend fine adjustments. Don't go crazy EQing this bit here. If you really like the sound, you're just like, oh, it's just a smidge too harsh. Pull the high pass, low pass, all right, out here and just pull it over a little bit till that harshness just starts to go away. And then in the mix, it'll disappear, you know, through masking. Great. Really enjoyed the MIKKO here. And obviously, I also enjoyed that this is stereo compatible. Because it would be nuts if I had to put that on every single track. Now with the solo, once again, we're doing the exact same thing. The solo has to have a different microphone. So you see here, it's all the same cab, guys. It's all the same angle. All right, but we're using different microphones and different positions to capture different sounds of the same IR speaker set. Here I'm going with a 421. It just has a different high frequency spectrum than the SM57. It'll automatically poke out. Done. Now for the solo. The solo was very interesting because Thomann recorded it with super hot single coil pickups, so they were very hot and aggressive and scratchy. So I was like, wow, what am I going to do here? So I actually just picked the 908 here because for some reason when you would tilt it and angle it just a little bit, it smoothed out the guitar tone. It smoothed it out and it just made it more musical, not so spiky and painful in the ear. And that's perfect. So we have a lead, you know, that's doubled with the MD421, and then a solo, which pops right out as well. So, the leads. So you can hear just how hot that single coil was. It was interesting to mix. And you can hear how raw and somewhat, I would say, spiky the leads sound. But you can hear every single articulated note on the pick. And I just mentioned that I just realized I forgot to mention that on the pedal board I went crazy here. Drive, delay, and I think I even used reverb on the solo. Very convenient to have this right on the amp sim, so I don't have to open up anything else and do anything else like this. I'm not a stickler when it comes to delay and reverb. I just want it to be a delay and a reverb. I want it to sound good. And it does. I think the solo, I went even more crazy with the settings on the pedal board. Yeah, I have more delay and reverb here for more atmosphere. But that, it was very simple to use, very straightforward. And I gotta say, you know, hats off to ML Sound Lab and MIKKO for making really good stuff. I am definitely impressed. I'm very happy with the way this song sounds. It just sounds so brutal. And that's really it, guys. You know, when it comes to metal or doing stuff, ML Sound Lab, you can do it. And you know, I was just scratching the surface here because I have so many plugins that I want to talk about in one video. I don't want to make this thing 5 hours long. But, you know, there's a ton of cabs here, by the way. There's a lot, you know, everything's here that you would want. And I really enjoy the visual representation of this is really what it looks like. You know, I'm sitting there in Hertz Studio in the live room, literally going like that. So I can just apply real world techniques right here to this plugin, and it works as you would expect it does. I think the visual representation also helps just in general, being able to go, okay, if the microphone looks like this, we kind of have this kind of a frequency pattern. I don't know how this is happening. how they're doing this and how accurate this might be, but it really doesn't matter. It's nice to know that once I set the microphone here, I don't have to open up another EQ plugin to go, okay, I want to pull down just a little tiny peak, just a little tiny bit. I can do it right here. You can visually see it all. Really like the MIKKO here. This is a fantastic cab IR plugin. You got me. I'm impressed. I really like it. It does everything that I wanted to do. Plus, it has a good selection of pretty much all the microphones that you would want to have for a guitar. No qualms, no problems. You can also export your own IR, so you don't have to remember these settings. You can save a preset, but you could export the IR and use it with a different IR loader. Would make it really simple, especially if you're doing complex blends. Really, that's kind of it. My final 2 cents would be if you want to like have a one-stop shop, you really, for example, you like ML drums and you're curious about some of their amp simulators, they can absolutely crush skulls. I'm very happy with it. I really, in particular, like the JCM800. I think that's very realistic sounding. It pretty much feels, like it. You really got to play it to get what you want out of it. It's very articulated, and it's not oversaturated or anything like that. It's not like the Nameless. It's the exact opposite. This is way more like an actual 800. It doesn't have quite the amount of gain that most people would probably expect it to have. It's a pretty low gain amp, actually. But here, it's fantastic, sounds great, blends well with the Mesa, and I really don't have anything else to say, just good stuff. The only thing I think that I noticed was that you got to be careful loading these plugins. I would recommend when you load the plugin, turn your volume off or cut your audio, hit the cut button on your audio interface, because I was experiencing pops when I would bring the plugins in. Also, I was experiencing pops when I would open the session. It would be like like this, and that's not good for your monitors. It could pop and damage them. So I've just gotten in the habit now. When I load in one of these plugins, I just hit cut on my ID44 here. Once everything loads in, fine. That's really the only thing I noticed that I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Other than that, I have nothing negative to report. Great plugins, guys. Well done. Thanks for the opportunity to check out your plugins. And yeah, so here you go. Links in the description. Let me know what you think about them. I'll see you guys in the next video.